Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Dugald Bruce Lockhart, and this is my debut novel, The Lizard, which I have to say, this is the first time I've actually held this in my hands. Today, this morning, I picked it up from the post office, so if I lose my way, get a little emotional, or start stumbling with my words, please forgive me. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Maswell Press. Anyway, I'm going to read a quick extract, a little chunk of chapter 2. But before I do that, I thought I'd give you a potted history into how this came about. Well, in 1988, when I left St Andrews University for the summer holidays on my solo quest to Paros and the Greek islands, along with my army surplus backpack and about £55 worth of traveller's checks, I wasn't obviously thinking about research and development for a novel. I went in pursuit of humbler goals, to become a beach bum and get a suntan. But I also went to get some headspace, to get some me time, as we would say now. I wasn't to realise that I would end up being kicked off the island by the police, or that I'd suffered 2 years of flashbacks, having OD'd on hydrochloric acid based diet pills called Ponderols. You could buy them over the counter. You're supposed to take one a week to help you slim, but I popped 5 in one go along with half a pint of Metaxa brandy another time. Nor did I ever think I'd spend an entire night being chased around the island by a gang of knife-wielding Turkish students. Unlikely antics, you'd think, for a moral philosophy and German student whose sole experience of drugs up until then had been soluble aspirin. Anyway, 30 years later, The Lizard. I present it to you. I should hasten to add that none of it is autobiographical. It goes a lot further than my slightly feral trip did in 1988. And I don't want to give the story away, but I'll read you a little bit of chapter 2. I should just get my glasses and find my way. Okay. So far, Aston, the protagonist, it's his first night. He just spent one night in Paros. He met Ricky, the Australian, on the ferry from Piraeus the day before, who got him drunk, offered him a job. And when Aston wakes up on the harbour quay in Paros, drunk in a puddle of pee and puke, the good news is he's on Paros, which was his destination in the first place. The bad news is he doesn't have his passport, he's lost all his traveller's checks, and he has about £7 to his name. But he thinks, I won't go to the police. If I go to the police, they'll send me to the British Embassy, who will basically send me straight home because I have no passport. And he thinks, I'm a hunter-gatherer, I can't do that. So he decides to ride it out. And that night he meets Roland, who's a Glaswegian fellow traveller, who says that he could probably get him work on a building site. At least he'll try. Aston thinks, let's do it. Chapter 2. An apricot dawn brought a lightness of spirit, and a not unsuccessful night's sleep under the mosquito-infested cedars along the beach wall renewed a belief in my hunter-gatherer potential. Cajoled off my patch by an over-friendly stray dog, I walked north along the bay, stashed my kit in a clump of bamboo behind an old goat hut, then returned to the campsite to find Roland. He was already up and waiting for me, and proving true to his word, took me on the back of his moped to the building site depot where he introduced me to his boss, Kiros, a massive man in a string vest and tight shorts, who, despite being so hairy he looked like an ape caught in a hammock, was charm itself. Yes, of course there was work for me. When could I start? Now, perfect. In seconds, it was all tied up. Roland set off for the resort of Pisa Levardi on the east coast to continue work on a bijou new wave hotel perched above the Strand, and Kiros introduced me to his nephew Leo, an equally massive man who had a mane of hair down to his shoulders and wide, hairy nostrils, all lion for sure. He couldn't speak any English, but via a series of hand gestures, we got off on the right foot. What was Roland worried about? 2 weeks passed. The spring flowers sloughed off their adornments under an increasingly sweltering sun, as I acclimatised myself to the rhythm of the island, cutting my teeth on a near hand-to-mouth existence. By night, I slept on the roof of the goat hut, high enough off the ground to keep the mosquitoes at bay and remote enough for the police not to bother me. By day, I was at work, refilling the coffers. It was hard graft, at times monotonous, but it felt honest. Each morning at the depot, we stacked scaffolding and timber onto our flatbed truck, and with Leo at the wheel, delivered the materials to the smattering of building sites dotted about the island. Afternoons, we painted rooftops. We never really spoke, but it didn't matter. I felt privileged to be simply sharing space with a bona fide local. At the end of each day, when Leo dropped me back in Perikia, I almost missed his company. I didn't go out at night. Without secure funds, I figured I'd build up some savings before allowing myself such frivolities. See? I spent some of my downtime writing in my makeshift journal, a half-used school exercise book I'd found discarded in the dried thistles by the roadside near the campsite. But I mostly snorkeled off the cliffs at Krios. Touched by the cold, swollen fingers of the open ocean, the misty sea floor carpeted in thousands of black sea urchins. I thought of Ellie less and less. My philosophy tutor would have labelled it denial, pushing all memories of her into a dark recess of my mind, stored out of harm's way, yet accessible in a crisis. But my tutor was history. I felt stronger. Did I dare say it? My own man. In fact, so certain was I of my metamorphosis, I decided a celebration was in order. And on the Thursday of my third week on the island, after Leo and I clocked off early from work, I broke protocol, dipped into my meagre savings and hired a moped to check out Nausa, in the north of the island. Time to pay a visit to the Tamarisk. And to find out what happens next, you'll have to read more. Here it is, The Lizard. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Happy reading. Stay safe. See you on the other side.